Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams and we have a Q&A session tonight because there's been loads of questions that have kind of hung over, and we had a fairly full show last night, and I played that song for a reason, because we have a lot of suspicious minds, unfortunately, and hopefully within this first hour we will correct the suspicious minds and answer some of your questions. Are you there?
I'm here.
Hi Kim, how's you?
Hi Thomas.
Busy
Good,
day.
how are you?
Busy day again, as per usual, dealing with clowns and whatnot.
As always.
Yeah. Right. We have a lot of questions on the trust and also the finances, and so we thought we'd bring you on, and of course we've got Sunday's show with Randy to look forward to, which will be rather interesting as well. And but tonight we're going to go through some of the questions that the members have put in and see how far we get. So first question for you is, a few months ago we were told that some big banks were sold for $1. Why can't they still not process the Manor Wealth Holding Trust?
Well, when we sold two of the largest banks for $1, we sold them to government. And then it's up to the governments that now technically own them to rectify the situation with inside the bank. So we're waiting for the governments to act. One of them is the American government, and the other one is the Russian government.
Yeah. Good stuff. So, presume, can you mention the two banks?
Wells Fargo was sold to the U.S.,
Yeah.
and Citibank was sold to the Russian government.
Right, so that's good. So, obviously, there's been a lot of issues to do with things being blocked off, and I think we'll cover more of that on Sunday, and the reasons why. And it's an ongoing daily process. But the next question is, does Kim Possible have more than one technical administrator backup of the quantum system for her unavailability?
The system has been pre-programmed in disbursement mode in accordance with RNA and DNA, and it's living DNA in accordance with intent. So if something were to happen to me, the system will continue on in exactly that fashion.
Right, fair enough. So it can't be interfered with. We know that, we've covered that on the show. And the system itself goes on, and it's based on intent.
It does. Every person has an allocation in there, and every country has an allocation in there. And the RNA is based on where the assets originally came from, and where the party was originally born. And that's where the living DNA aspect of it comes into play.
Yeah, well, one of the things that was mentioned to me recently is they can, or think they can get around the system by smelting, for argument's sake, gold down. But it's, as I understand it, it still retains its RNA, is that correct?
That is correct.
So they can't just steal loads of gold out of some bunker that belongs to country A, B or C, smelt it down and think they can just carry on with it and act like it's their own anymore. So that's how it works.
No.
Can the quantum system be replicated and scaled down to replace Apple, Android and Microsoft apps?
For what purpose?
Good question. Well, this is just the question I think there's a lot of issues, and people are worried. It may be this question was related to the security things that you that was found, and maybe a quantum system can be used or a type of quantum system can be used in more ready-made devices as such, the phones and whatnot, but it could be related to the security issues.
Okay. Well, there's, the quantum system, when I say quantum, it actually relates to the way that the information that the system can actually process. But it's not a processing speed. It's the multi-level at which the system draws information in. So it can draw information through multiple planes, the multiverse, all at the same time.
Yeah.
As it relates to the banking system and security of banking, there are systems that are available which can be implemented, which draw on the same type of security, such as it will register your living DNA and then also your intent. So what we mean by intent, to be very clear, is it will show, for example, if you are under duress and you're not wanting to withdraw money from your account, the system will recognize the fact that this is an unauthorized transfer, even if you're punching in the right codes and the right PIN numbers. It'll recognize that it's unauthorized. Those systems have been created, and there's a number of different ones out there that are very good that can be implemented once the banking system is cleaned up. The quantum system that people are talking about on the internet is a processing speed. It has nothing to do with the same type of system. It's the ones that keep going up and down, Babylon 1, 2, 3, 4, Hercules, Annabelle. They're not quantum processing even speed.
No. This is so I hope that clears things up for people. This is a one-off system, and there's all kinds of clowns running around saying that they've got. Of course, we had the Rothschilds one at the Wright-Patterson a number of months ago, where they were asking for 30 million of people or organisations to access. That didn't last long. Like a number of other of the systems didn't last too long. Would you like fries with that? And
one thing you can count from my predecessors are they considered the Dragon families and the Rothschilds their slaves, and so they would never give all of the information to all of the people all the time. They always wanted to maintain control. So therefore, what they would give them is antiquated technology in comparison to what they were actually running, which is the same system that we are now running.
Yeah. It just doesn't equate. So they can keep carrying on with the so-called quantum and so-called advanced systems, but it's not the system. That's the key. They can't replicate it. Right, let's go on to the next question. Are governments of Central America on board with the trust and its pending projects? There are many people in Central America who are suffering in depressed economies under oppressive control systems.
We are in talks with a number of Central American governments, Guatemala being one of them. The Guatemalan government has confirmed and verified funds of the trust, as well as several of the other Central American presidents, since he's been talking to everybody. So we are in the process. They were actually discussing their first credit this evening, but probably be most likely tomorrow now, as it's getting a little bit late there. But we have been in discussions with Honduras and a number of other Central American governments in order to, they're presenting their projects. They're all very good projects, at least to get things started. And then hopefully we'll be able to use some of their private banks for private projects there in the area and other humanitarian efforts.
Yeah. Well, I think what a lot of people, there's because of one certain person on the internet thinking that you haven't been able to transfer any funds, but you have already done so to various countries, and in particular the ones that are kind of publicised in the news as being rather oppressed for the people. Is that not the case?
We have transacted with a couple of African countries. We are working on several South American countries right now, and a few others. And also the one that you live in, Thomas, as recent as 48 hours ago.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. And of course, you have been transferring funds to the government as well.
The American government?
No, here. I mean, the money that was transferred for the budget as such, which people tend to forget, came from the trust as well.
Yes, and there was more, a little bit more done this week too.
Yeah. Has Manor World Holding Trust informed the world leaders that there are measures in place to feed humanity when the current systems are caught off guard or unprepared?
Yes. Pretty much every single country in the world has been notified. There isn't a country that hasn't. We've done transactions with Beijing. There's been a few things in the UK that are getting started. You remember the bond issuance and everything that we had done in the past.
Yeah.
There are some other countries that are coming forward now. They're asking for our assistance. We do have issues where the IMF and the World Bank and mercenaries keep showing up threatening world leaders. That happened today in one country. In another country, they actually called and asked to borrow money from this very poor country. So, it's an ongoing battle between, the UN, Rothschilds, Chinese elders. There were reports this week of a South American country being taken over by the Chinese elder people, and they did not show up. Thomas, you and I discussed that. They actually did not show up. They were supposed to, 150 Asian people were supposed to be there yesterday. They did not go.
No. Yeah, but they
probably because the RV didn't happen.
Oh, the RV. Regurgitated vomit. Oh, dear. Right, next question. This person doesn't quite see a plan how this new financial system and returning funds to the people is going to work out. Is there a reason for the secrecy of it? And the second round of tax cuts surely helps, but we seem a long way off from any real relief.
I would like not to believe that we're a long way off.
No.
Getting money to the government is one thing. Getting money to the people is another, which means you actually need a bank to land it at. We've been blocked by everyone you could possibly imagine trying to get funds through to the bank, not only on a cyber level, but also on a personnel level. They've had, hundreds of years to put their people in place, and if it's not their people, then the board members. You can take a look at some of the international board of J.P. Morgan, for example. You have Tony Blair on the board. You have a number of known names. Kissinger is on the board of some others. The Lee family, in Wells Fargo. There's a number of people inside the institutions and without the institutions that have made many attempts to block every single transfer that we've done. The good news is every time we make a transfer, which we're doing constantly now, every few days, they show more of their cards. So eventually, as there's only 52 cards in a deck of cards, there's going to be only so many systems and so many people that will be exposed every single time we make a transfer. There are also reports of a special committee, or not a committee, I shouldn't say that, a special group as appointed by Trump here in the States to investigate and to enforce the Department of Treasury's regulatory abilities in these institutions. So that we can look forward to in the next week or two, as I know the group is already being formed, and these are all specialized agents that have a lot of experience in banking and in, obviously counterterrorism activities, because that's pretty much what they're doing.
Yeah, I've informed our members that America, the country, is under a financial, and Europe for that matter, under financial assassination program. So everything transfers to the so-called East.
That's true. We'll go into more detail on that, I think, on Sunday.
Yeah.
But we have obtained, and we've had it now for a few years, a copy of the plan, which was revised in 1975, and it's very similar to what they did to the UK right after World War II, where the power was transferred to America, and they were slated to complete a power transfer by 2012 over to the East. And so far, we've been able to stop that from happening, because the United States would go into a 10-year depression, and it's not quite the same as it was during World War II, where Britain was no longer, the British pound was no longer the world's trade currency. It wasn't as widespread. We didn't have a digital banking system at the time, and they still went through a 10-year depression right after World War II. The U.S., if the U.S. were to go down, 148 countries would go down with it, and all would be suffering a depression, which is perhaps what these people are looking for. There's been talk and back chatter, from the Chinese elders basically saying, why would we pay full price to take over the world when we can take it over for pennies on the dollar or nothing if the whole world crashes?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they don't have any money to pay, so I guess they're going for zero.
Yep. Well, they're in big trouble, all of them. Next question's on the Social Security in America and the trust. Does it pay it, or does the government? And what is the backstory of Social Security and its relation to the trust?
The trust was always the buyer of the birth certificate bonds. The birth certificate bond program was not what everybody thinks it is. It was developed under something called Treasury of USA, which has nothing to do with the Department of Treasury and nothing to do with the U.S. government. It was a program of the trust and its then, at that time, liaison. So Treasury of USA was an organization that would collect birth certificate bonds about the age of 6 or 7. They would transfer the bonds into the trust based on future tax payments of that person. So depending on the year and the average income, the average wages, they would estimate that you were going to retire by the age of 60, up to 65. It started out at 50. And they would estimate that you could pay X amount of taxes. So the bond would be worth that amount. Hence the IRS being the collection agency for what everybody deems as Rothschild, because Rothschild was a trustee of the trust. They're still collecting taxes from the IRS, although it's going to them and it's not going to repay the trust for the bonds that they issued. So the funds would come out of the trust, and the program was actually designed to provide many socio-humanitarian programs to the people, such as Social Security being one of them, Medicare, food stamp programs, free public education. There were funds in here designed to go to the police to protect you as a citizen. There was backup collateral for mortgages on there. There was the Coast Guard was in there, the Pentagon was in there. All of these things designed to keep you healthy, and if you're low income, the programs for that, Section 8, and these were all dispersed through Treasury USA and on to the Ways and Means Committee in the case of Social Security. Now, the program went defunct in 2007. The trust has not bought up bonds since 2007, and it has not, hence the market crash about a year later, as all of the mortgage-backed bonds and the CDOs and derivative crisis was all based on the birth certificate bonds. So the trust has stopped buying them in 2007, and we have not collected anything as far as the taxes that are owed against those bonds at all. So that was the program. It was actually designed to do all of these things. These